Ben Shapiro is giving us an opportunity to debunk some very common false claims about climate change. As many of you know, it's been insanely hot lately. In fact, record global heat, multiple records being pounded into oblivion in July. Now, the Daily Wire's Ben Shapiro, former guest on this program, and he's welcome to come back anytime, as I've said before, I'm not avoiding him. He has a solution to the heat and to global warming. He says the solution is air conditioning. There is so much nonsense in this clip that I am going to take it as an opportunity to give people some facts about different aspects to this. Let's listen.
Can I point out that there are a lot of headlines right now about how hot it is outside?
Sure.
I know. It's hot outside. You know what I can do about that? Zero things. Thank God we have this thing called air conditioning. It's awesome. You know, it's a great cure for being super duper hot outside. Being a first world country. Amazing. It works out tremendously well.
Okay. Air conditioning is not a solution to warming because of the second law of thermodynamics. I know that sounds weird, but let me explain this to you. Air conditioners require a lot of energy to operate, and much of that energy comes from the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas to generate the electricity that powers the air conditioner. The burning of those fuels releases greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere, which contributes to the greenhouse effect and these erratic temperatures, including the record heat that we have. So your air conditioner might provide localized cooling, but the net effect is an increase in greenhouse gas emissions, and it worsens the problem that we are having. The air conditioners are, in a sense, part of the problem. Waste heat, because the cooling process transfers heat to the outside, and this can this is called the heat island effect. Dependency and adaptation. If you rely on air conditioners, there's a vicious cycle where we don't do the things required to actually deal with the rising temperatures because we have the air conditioning, and it just makes it worse and worse and worse. And it takes attention away from other things that can be done, you know, natural ventilation and shading and green roofs and painting streets and sidewalks white and all of these different things that we're looking at. So the air conditioning is not a solution. It's actually part of the problem. Let's continue.
Because it turns out that if you have a really solid energy grid and you have the capacity to turn on that AC, you're living quite comfortably these days. You know what sucks? Global poverty. You know what brings global poverty? Decarbonization.
Okay, that is also not true. So this is another talking point from the right. Decarbonization, meaning the getting away from using fossil fuels and carbon in day-to-day lives, makes global poverty worse. Now, this is wrong. As is often the case with these talking points, there's sometimes like a kernel of an idea of possible truth. It is true that in the short term, decarbonization, transitioning to a low carbon economy, might generate some costs in the immediate. But the long-term argument of decarbonization increasing poverty is very much wrong. If we transition to a low-carbon economy, it will create jobs, it will create economic growth, it will unleash entire new industries, renewable energy industries, solar, wind, hydroelectric. These are growing, and they would grow even more and generate significant jobs. Two, fossil fuel-based energy sources pollute the air and water, which have health implications. If you shift to cleaner energy sources, you can reduce the healthcare costs associated with the carbon economy. There will be workers with better health able to work in many parts of the world, which generates economic growth. Third, the effects of climate change disproportionately are already impacting the poor. So the idea that the climate change is impacting the poor, but dealing with climate change is also going to hurt the poor should make us wonder about that. It actually would be a good thing for global poverty. And then, of course, we already have circumstances where many impoverished communities don't have access to affordable energy. They don't even have reliable electricity always. If we decarbonize and in some ways decentralize the generation of energy, this can include geothermal, solar, wind, etc., you actually will bring energy and more reliable energy to parts of the world that don't have it. This will allow them to develop industry and to raise themselves out of poverty. So this is just, it's all of these things are very much incorrect. Let's watch the last few seconds of this.
Let me also point out that the media always do this routine when it's very, very hot outside. They never ever cover it when it's cold. So it's funny. The media will say, well, it's not global warming, it's now climate change. And the reason they changed the term from global warming to climate change is because the climate in many cases is colder during the winters than it was before. So it's
okay. So, and again, nothing has changed. They love making this argument. You guys changed what you were calling it because you needed to. No. If you actually look at climate change models dating back 30 years, you see that it is not just about global warming. It's about more erratic weather, more severe weather, record highs, record lows, all of these things. And for Ben Shapiro to say, oh, the left only talks about this when it's hot. How many times have we seen Fox News hosts and Republicans say, hey, it's winter and it's cold, so clearly there is no climate issue? They are just as guilty of that, if not more. And almost everything that Ben Shapiro says in this segment is wrong. The other really important thing to keep in mind with all of these arguments is that they love to say this hasn't been studied when it has, or they love to say not every study agrees. And of course, it's normal that not every study agrees when you're talking about science, but the consensus is important. Could consensus be wrong? Sure. But the whole point of the scientific process is that it encourages proving wrong what is an existing consensus. And when it comes to this issue, other than these extraneous outliers that when you look closely, they have methodological flaws or conflicts of interest or whatever the case may be, the consensus has really zoned in one direction, and it is very inconvenient for people like Ben Shapiro. That's the important thing to remember. Something that's been in the news a lot lately is data brokers collecting vast amounts of data about everything you do on your phone and computer, where you go, what you look at. They identify patterns in your behavior. And it's really quite disturbing how much data brokers know about us, even our health information. And then we found out that sometimes government agencies like the FBI will buy that information from data brokers to spy on Americans without warrants. Ad companies buy the data to serve you ads. Financial institutions can use the information. The information can even end up on public search sites where anybody can see it, but there is a way to stop it. Our sponsor, Incogni, is an affordable service that sends automatic data removal requests to data brokers who are required by law to comply. Incogni even follows up with the data brokers to ensure your data is permanently gone. And Incogni keeps you updated every step of the way. I use Incogni myself. It is remarkable what they will accomplish for you. And my audience gets 60% off. Go to incogni.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman. The link is down below.